Blake, and this is my review of the movie X-Men Apocalypse. Imperative Muse is a new channel that covers geek-related and geek-adjacent content like this X-Men Apocalypse review, so let's get into the review. I'll start off with the spoiler-free section, and then segue into the more spoiler-heavy review later on. Does that sound like a plan? I'll even give you a verbal spoiler warning and everything. I won't be privy to your answer until this is uploaded, so I'm just going to go ahead and assume it was a yes, since you're watching this video of your own volition. What did I think of the film? Well, director Bryan Singer is old hat at this franchise, and it shows. It just feels tired. The first half of the film is promising, but the second half simply falls apart. Amid character arcs that fizzle out and themes that get left for dead at the end of the movie, the worst part is that the last 30 minutes feel like they have zero consequence, zero weight. A bright side of the film is the acting performances by Michael Fassbender as Magneto and James McAvoy as Professor X. Those two are definitely the emotional center of this film and carry most of the first half. Further along on the character front, many of the new characters shine and make me excited to see what comes next for them in this universe, this X universe. My final recommendation is that fans of the franchise will likely find fun nuggets to enjoy, and I don't regret buying tickets to see this, but it definitely, absolutely has its flaws. If you're looking to find a quality film and a quality film-going experience, you may be better served looking elsewhere in the movie theater. Okay, that was the spoiler-free review. Now we move on to talking about spoilers and plot points, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and don't want to know more, please tune out now. So the basics of the plot. We start with Apocalypse, a godlike mutant ruling over ancient Egypt. Some of his followers rebel and seal him in a pyramid for thousands of years until he is woken up by Moira McTaggart in the 1980s. Yeah, the 1980s. So now Apocalypse begins to recruit his horsemen, and it's up to the X-Men to stop him. Oh, and a wild Phoenix Force appears. It uses convenient plot device. It was super effective at sweeping away the villain when the movie didn't know what to do with him. Sure, we want the plot to be interesting, but what keeps us coming back to these juggernaut movie universes are the characters and how they react to the circumstances the writers put them in. Starting with the more positive aspects of the side characters, also known as characters who aren't Professor X or Magneto. Nightcrawler is fun, and he had a few funny lines. Quicksilver brought a levity to the film that was much appreciated by me and many other members of the audience for the showing that I was in. I've never been too excited about this incarnation of Mystique, and this movie just reinforces that. The character's importance feels forced, and Jennifer Lawrence doesn't seem to fit with the character very well. Beast didn't really have anything to do except have awkward moments with Mystique, which is a shame because that character can bring depth to the story through his beast-like appearance, causing people to discount his intelligence and sincerity. The major characterization he got was disagreeing with Professor X on whether they needed to take measures to guard against potential threats, i.e., do they have, the X-Men up and operational, things like that. Scott and Jean were okay. The story was able to quickly convey where their characters were when we met them, which is that they both have trouble controlling their powers, and that scares people, both humans and mutants alike. No real arcs to the characters, just introductions. Jean taps into the Phoenix Force, but we don't get to see how that affects her or the team. I don't think any of the characters use Jubilee's name, which is pretty indicative of her impact and role in the film. She has a couple of lines that only give a glimpse of the character. I really wish we had been able to see an extended version of the Young Mutants' jaunt to the mall. That would have fleshed out the thin characterizations more with some good character moments. Overall, I'd give the side characters a C grade when we average out all the highs and lows, the highs being Nightcrawler and Quicksilver, with the lows being Jennifer Lawrence playing Mystique and Beast. I really thought they could do more with Beast and somewhat Mystique, but they didn't, and they ended up being some of the worst characters in the movie. That brings us to the two roles that the movie spends the most time on, which are Magneto and Professor X. Michael Fassbender is the highlight of this movie easily. You can relate to the character, empathize with him. His return to the dark side seems in line with the character and his motivations. But as it turns out, instead of having an actual character arc, Eric's character is basically reset to how he was before the film, just without his family. His family was killed at the beginning of the film. You thought it might propel his character, give him some motivation, but that's not the case. The destruction he brings to the world, and doubtlessly countless lives lost, doesn't make a blip in the movie. He doesn't show remorse or face any consequence. The film not having any real consequences is a refrain for my thoughts on almost every part of the script. Magneto's relationship with Professor X is repaired, and Magneto walks away from the movie with a smirk and a "see you around, old friend" air at the end. The character started out great, but ended fairly poorly. Professor X, on the other hand, his story arc basically amounts to him going from a standpoint that the X-Men aren't needed to defend Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, to he still holds those values about mutants and humans living in harmony, but we might need the X-Men just in case a threat arises that we can't simply hug it out with. And additionally, he's significantly less haired at the end. He gets his signature bald look as a result of a failed transference of Apocalypse into Professor X's body. He also has a side story with Moira McTaggart, where he eventually restores the memories he made her forget, really making her forget all of those memories without permission. It's a rather gross overstep, I would think, as far as psychic ethics would go. So I'm really disappointed they didn't address that in the movie itself and the consequences. It just seemed everybody was happy and everything worked out at the end, regardless of Professor X overstepping his psychic boundaries there. All of the destruction wrought by Magneto and Apocalypse at the end of the movie, and all the characters simply happy or satisfied at the end, and it didn't really give any impact or weight to what was going on during the movie itself. I give the characterizations of Professor X and Magneto a C- because they really dropped the ball with having the plot points make sense for the characters established in X-Men Apocalypse as well as the previous two films. Now let's briefly tackle themes in this movie. The first 30 minutes of the film set up many themes, and I was thinking, man, this is a really theme-rich script that has a lot of potential. They don't really capitalize on it though, and with how mishandled themes are in the back third of the movie, I'm not sure they had a firm grasp on the concept of themes, or at least it wasn't a priority for them or for the producers, Fox in general, really. So one of the themes is gods among us. Apocalypse considers himself a god and wants to cause a global catastrophe in part because he believes humans and mutants alike are being led by false gods. Professor X plays God by wiping Moira's memories, and this doesn't really get aligned. The Professor X thinking or playing God and Apocalypse thinking he's God, they don't really have that parallel. It's kind of like they set it up, but they never actually follow through on it, and the film itself doesn't seem to be aware of the parallel at all. So it's really an unconvincing and an unsatisfying theme. It's set up really well, and I was really excited for it, but ultimately it simply doesn't pay off. And then with Magneto, we have the past coming back and true natures being inescapable. So Magneto, he tries to have a normal life, try to blend in with the humans, but then his family gets killed and he goes back to the dark side. And then you have Apocalypse, who was sealed away for thousands of years, but through just random happenstance, he's brought back. And then you have Jean, who was trying to get by while being plagued with the effects of the Phoenix Force. The character came across like she wanted to never have had those abilities, but it's those very abilities that allow her to defeat Apocalypse at the end of the movie. So all of those are about the past coming back, and people's true natures being inescapable. I think that was one of the better executed themes. It was apparent, and it was threaded through the entire movie, and I was actually really pleased with how this came about. So that's what I thought of the movie. Tell me what you guys thought down in the comments. Let me know if you had the same experiences with theme and characterization that I had. If you like this review, go ahead and give the video a like. And as far as the channel is concerned, I'll be putting out geek movie reviews, interesting movie reviews, as well as covering news that is central to geek culture and all around interesting movie news. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.